this broadcast we are titling Align with Earth as we prepare the way to the 52nd Earth Day observance, making conscious the importance and relevance of these various numbers and frequency patterns that we're seeing across our span, our human timelines, and how this also indicates certain behaviors and patterns that we need to make conscious so that we can make conscious choices with how to navigate them. I want to welcome my brother RuBen, Llinas, the Harmonic Factor, as you can see here. Grateful to have you here with me, brother.
Grateful, grateful to have you also back in our conversation and have the opportunity to analyze and synthesize and harmonize everything that has been going on since our last live stream, and be able to connect the dots and make the conscious all the aspects of the cosmic drama and the geopolitical drama that is unfolding on Earth since we spoke for the last time on a live stream.
And what was the date of that last time that we spoke?
Yeah, that was right before the February 22nd portal, the 2022.
Yep.
We did like a special broadcast for that particular portal. And since then, the life on Earth has been changing very rapidly. And we are into a brand new stage of the process of harmonic convergence and galactic synchronization, unfolding right on schedule, basically. There's a lot of prophetic cycles that are now completing, and that are we are getting signals that there's way more to that meets the eye, and that what we are seeing on the surface is just a reflection of deeper patterns and cycles in nature, and the resonance of those patterns through time. So we are seeing a lot of that since we spoke for the last time, and this is a perfect opportunity to make it conscious, because where we are right now as we record is one more Solkin spin or cycle of 260 days in December 21st, 2012. So here we are at this fractal portal of December 21st, 2012, exactly 14 Solkins ago, or 13, probably 13.
Oh, look at that. That would be important to figure out.
Yeah, because recently I remember that recently we crossed the September 9 was Kin 9, and we completed 13 Solkins from the Venus transit.
Right.
So that was 2012. So now we must be completing
13
Solkins from
since
December.
crossing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Look at that.
Look at that. Here we are.
And here we are. Auspiciously, as you said, today we're recording this now in real time, and aware of that completion of cycles, that synchronization, knowing that the day that this will air will be the day before the completion of another important marker in Kin 209. So 207 to 209 is a very significant window here, obviously, as we begin the last 52-day cycle of the 260-day spin.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit more about this significance of 207, as we know, this being the crystal hand, but then heading to 209, the magnetic moon. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, there is a fractal quality to this window, which is, as you mentioned, key 27, 208, 209, marks a transition that within the larger context of green spell cosmology it marks the entrance of or the fractal entrance or the passage through this episode called the theft of time. This is an archetypal story that is embedded within the Solkin to remind us of how these cycles are at times highlighted by their correspondence to other events, like in this moment, what is happening on Earth. So this episode or this fractal wound that is in the recorded in the fabric of time as the moment that we were supposed to enter the moon genesis in our consciousness, collective consciousness, and adopt the 13 moon calendar as our natural standard of being, of living on planet Earth. But at that point, the male priest class took power, and the power of the third number 13 was taken away. So this is connected to the other layers of the Gregorian calendar in terms of the connection of the date February 24th as the ground zero of this Gregorian count. At least it's not the first day of the calendar, but it's the day that it was signed into being or enacted, like I said.
The papal bull.
Yeah.
The papal bull. So February 24th, 1582.
Yes.
That was enacted. 440 years ago, we might add.
440, yeah.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah, and during our last broadcast, for those who didn't have the chance to tune in, we were speaking about the importance of that number because it's 20 cycles, 22 cycles of 20 years, which is 22 generations that we have been evolving through this artificial mechanistic tool to pace evolution on Earth. So what we are going to complete in the next couple of days in 208, 209 is another fractal stage of this process called the theft of time, which is connected to this papal bull and the institutionalization of this harmony and an altered version of measuring time that engenders war, and it's based on, it's embedded into the structure and the names of the calendar. The month of March, as we mentioned some years ago, corresponds to the god Mars, and of course, this month is where we tend to see more episodes of war across the timelines.
Exactly. And also noting that February 24th was the initial attack from Russia into the Ukraine, as reported in the Western media, right? That was an indicator of this, again, the significance and the intricate nature of conflict that is always visited and revisited through this particular passage of time.
Yeah. So it's a very it's very telling on a multidimensional level that the tool that engenders this kind of scripts within the narrative of evolution is uh, embedded into the repetition of certain events on Earth that reminds or is a reminiscence of that initial intention. So,
Even based on the word sound of the names, as you mentioned, with the names of the
mm,
months,
yeah,
Mars, March, for example. But
mhm,
then even looking at like the anchor in the Julian calendar, the Roman era of
mm,
conquest and domination and military mentality in that regard,
mm,
for the purpose of conquest,
mm,
that was what preceded even the Gregorian. That became, in a way, as a reform of the Julian calendar system
mhm,
too. So I think it's interesting to note the carryover there in the psychology of the species largely that has been in many ways subject to this domination mentality
mm,
of conquest and just that nature of dominance
mm,
and making domicile, domestication of peoples around the world through force and violence and through
mm,
theft, through outright theft, specifically, and then subjugation to all sorts of atrocities,
mm.
as we can see in the wake of these things.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and I think that's where also what is happening takes a new dimension is because we are speaking about the theft of time, which is something we don't even make conscious on a regular basis. That it's not only in space that the theft has been happening with the money system and how it works and how it's used to fuel these industries of war and uh, energy
they
energy
go hand in hand. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah.
so, so these are a very crucial passage because we are in a way redeeming a lot of the repeated patterns of that over the years this calendar has engendered. Mm.
Yeah. And it's
And
interesting because it's that conflict is played out on the population uh, at such a level that the population is completely unaware that this is actually happening and that they're participating then unconsciously in this ongoing drama
yeah.
because it's, in a way, it's codified. War is coded into the Gregorian calendar. It's
Mhm,
coded into that operating system
mm,
so that it operates almost as though automatically,
mhm,
and people are as though numb to it to some degree.
mm,
It's like they're not making the connection that this is what actually has systematized the conflict, that it's
mm,
operating like a machine
mhm,
along this artificial construct,
mhm,
basically, in comparison to obviously what we're intending to present to people by way of natural time,
mm,
which is obviously a variable frequency to this otherwise mechanized artificial time. You have artificial time, which produces and engenders war and separation and the extraction culture,
mm,
that a lot of the wars are fought around energy, uh,
mhm,
control,
mhm,
domination of land or territories, right? But
mhm,
then you have a a parallel reality of sorts,
mm,
the coherent timing of natural time, of the frequencies of the celestial bodies and
mm.
their timing in relationship to each other, and that dance, and how that actually fosters evolution.
Yep.
It fosters a whole other uh, range of consciousness
Yeah.
versus this otherwise, complex and divisive way of living and perceiving,
Mm,
and interacting with each other. It also brings me to something I've thought about recently, is in the idea that nature knows no nation states.
mm,
There's not a nation state boundary in nature. Earth
mhm,
has no boundaries,
mm,
truly.
mm,
And so it's one of the things that we're running up against in the consciousness shift,
mm,
is as by force, of that illusion were going to be made to break through that limitation of perception. Because as with the internet and the way that things are more interconnected now more than ever through communication and dialogue and social media and all the like, we're beginning to see beyond the boundaries in many cases. Obviously, all these tools are also being used to stimulate separation and pride of one territory or one nation versus another over another, etc. But all of that is still part of the conundrum of the old system that, to some regard, has already been retired. It's almost as though I think there are certain groups of people who've come to an awareness or a consciousness that have made certain decrees, established certain perceptions or new ways of living, being, and interrelating on Earth that have set a precedent for retiring the old way. It's just that in this transition period we find ourselves, that old way is not just going to give up, because it's so insidious, it's so deep into its narrative of control and domination. It's gotten so far down the road in that way of approaching things that it's almost as if impossible for them to stop. So it's going to be up to the people who are waking up and remembering or recognizing that there is another order, a natural order of things here as well. Obviously, the conflicts on Earth have been challenging our ability to recognize the natural order. And yet, at the same time, we're coming to the point where I feel like we're not going to have much choice because we can't operate in that dysfunctional way any longer. It's not going to be permitted in some ways, just by physics. It's just by the sheer physics of it, right? If we're looking at the potential of nuclear annihilation or things like this that have long been a threat. I mean, we know this has been a threat throughout these recurring cycles of conflict and war, like we're talking about, or theft or dispossession of land, and instances of this. So we're at the point now, though, obviously, as a species, where we're faced with a choice. And we've been speaking about this for a time. Now, what's interesting, though, is, as you said, since the last conversation we had prior to the gate portal 222, right, just prior to that, things have accelerated into a new iteration, jumping from the pandemic right into now this conflated dynamic situation that has so many vantage points across a variety of different timelines. So when we're looking at synchronization of timelines, we're looking at these conflicts, past, present, future, in order to properly determine where to go next. We have to have a clear vision, a clear, coherent understanding of what got us here to now, and then it's important to also observe where these certain pivotal events in the geopolitical scheme, for example, do tend to recur at these particular windows along the calendar, along the timing. Something significant to February 24th, as we've been noting, that shows up several times along the timeline as being a day where very particular and specific geopolitical things have occurred, as well as astrophysical things like February 24th, and that discovery in 1987.
Exactly.
With the supernova, which, obviously I think speaks to the parallel realities again of this old system that is not willing to just go out without a bang, obviously, unless and until there is such a compelling shift that is beyond anyone's control, really, that just, in a way, leaves no choice. Well, you have choice until you have no choice. And I think that's sort of where we're finding ourselves now. So the idea is to make conscious these parallel realities so that through choice, I can actually choose which one to actually navigate in and as part of.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate as well, and it makes great sense. There's been so much work over the past century regarding peace building and world relationship, including relationship through people from Russia, that people in the West are made to think or conditioned to think of as adversaries and enemies. Like that's the way that we've been brought up here to think largely, you know, people specifically from Russia, right? Unbeknownst to us, and we've been told a myriad of things that are untrue by the leadership of this nation for reasons of domination and control and coercion, and because it's still the old divide and conquer mentality. At the same time, there are parallel realities in which there's great camaraderie between people of the West and people from Eurasia and Russia and other parts of the world who are tapped into higher calling, who are tapped into spiritual mandates, like what that symbol behind you, for example, represents.
Yes.
Being from a most prominent and phenomenal Russian artist, Nicholas Roerich, who he and his wife, Helena Roerich, and great respect to them for their contributions that have even contributed to everything that leads us to now, that we can even have such a forum as this and a conversation of this nature. But to really recognize that part of the challenge is we have to include and transcend all of this miscommunication and corrupt communication, you know, that's happening here at this material level, and really get beyond it to tap into the soul of the matter of what really is at stake, frankly, and at hand, I think, at this time. You know, speaking of hand, at hand, I mean, it's the crystal hand. So, and crystal hand represents our collective healing and our collective accomplishment through a crystallization of knowing, truly like a crystalline knowing. And so, you know, the qualities that speak through these codes are very transcendent to the dramas on the world stage, but they include it as well, because you can see where it is playing out and figuring itself out, even because, as you said, the word reconciliation, right? There's a reconciliation that I feel we are becoming conscious of, and we have to be able to get to the point to hold the heart open wide enough that we can be part of the reconciliation of all of this otherwise distorted situation where people have just constantly been pitted against each other and made to be enemies and don't even know why they have a conflict. They don't know. But because they've assumed a nation state mentality, that's something that has been leveraged. Right? People making a lot of money off of betting who's going to win this conflict and which nation is going to be victorious over another. At some point, all the nations have to just say, you know what, I'm putting down my weapons and I'm going to focus my attention on where this is really being created from. Where is this being caused? Where is this theft of time we talk about? Where is it manifesting now? Who is being robbed now? You know what I'm saying? And we know enough. And a large part of the challenge, though, is we're so busy going at each other in this, you know, distorted way that's been disinformed and misinformed for so long. It's built up the conflict. I mean, it's obviously spilled into violence and others, vengeance, and all sorts of levels of compounding effect. At some point, we have to step back and accept that, you know, we need to recognize the actual enemies in this situation. You know, and so that's obviously a level and a dimension of this conversation that is not necessarily always easy to get into, because there are already prepared reactions from the establishment or bodies like this worldwide. I mean, the whole thing is totally insidious to where it's already queued up to have a response, to put you in a box and call you X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
with some trope or some meme or some category,
Mm.
when it comes to actually scratching the surface of the actual truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so we realize that we are treading very delicate areas in the human psyche and the geopolitical drama that's being orchestrated. I think it's important to speak to it in those terms. It is being orchestrated. Now, one thing that I do find a sense of peace with, to a degree, is that I also feel that as humanity or man, we may say, has their plans, which we see them being worked out and orchestrated through politics and finance and all of these other ways, the creator has a master plan. The creator truly has a plan. It's encoded in humanity, and it's actually being activated by what's happening in this window as well, not just in the third dimension, but in the multiple densities, including the action of our sun, our local star, giving off incredible plasmic energy that is impacting us physiologically. It's accelerating even the activation of our own human DNA. This is, and as a result, certain gifts and skills and things are coming online for individuals all over the world who are not necessarily being caught up or mired in this conversation, the geopolitical drama. People are actually having actual organic transformative experiences. Many people are having them, even they don't even know how to talk about them with other people for fear of being labeled something contrary to the narrative, right? So, and there's so many contrary and contrasting narratives happening at once, and they're all being also muddled and confused with bits and pieces of each other's narrative crossed through it, so that nobody even knows what direction they're heading in anymore. Anyway,
and I think that that's how everything that we see on the 3D, this geopolitical theater, can be interpreted through another set of filters, including the codes of the cycles of time and the prophecies, because we are being witnesses to prophetic events unfolding on Earth. This has been becoming much more evident for the last 2 years with this crisis that we have been enduring, and that are part of a script. Let's say that there is an entropic script and there is a syntropic script, and it depends to a high degree where we put our attention to is the one that has the most chances of manifesting in this reality. And we're entering now also into this quantum territory, that everything like creation, the Big Bang, is happening now at every second. So there is nothing really in script more than our DNA unfolding or inscribing the human body and mind and soul into a new fractal representation, which is based in number and geometry and structure. And these are the qualities behind harmony that we usually don't perceive through the Gregorian lens or the other calendars, because even there is harmony within the disharmony. That's the beauty of this work, is that prophecy creates a mythocosmological version or way of understanding what is happening, and the codes, the numbers, creates the mathematical basis, and we have a perfect um, uh, set of tools to interpret what is happening without falling into the drama or the getting caught up in the emotional turmoil that is creating all that drama. Because it's very human to feel frustration and impatience and anxiety at this time. Uh, and it's also very human to be able to transcend that. Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what we are doing, and we have been doing basically since we started this transition in 2012, is making conscious what was previously unconscious, and within that process, reality it's reformulated in a coherent and cohesive structure that we can all relate through this set of filters. So if we use in this case the set of the Gregorian calendar, just the Gregorian calendar, that it's a program that repeats the war script or narrative, and that we are right now having like two perfect examples of that being February 24th, 2014, becoming the shift of of, of government in Ukraine, and 8 years later, seeing the whole energy reversal of that move from uh, the opposite side.
Exactly.
So we are now just seeing something, a dynamic that is unfolding, that is connected to cycles of time and to harmonics. 8 years is the is connected to harmony, and it's called the galactic tone of harmony within the cosmology.
That's right.
So so there is a harmony behind what we are seeing right now unfolding, even though it's very painful, and I certainly feel for uh, all the people in Russia who are being caught up also in this situation, and being judged by just one person. So we need to be really compassionate at this time with the world, without being, this is fine line between being compassionate and being negligent. Yeah. So it's how we can, from our small um, influence within this hologram, shift this perception of division into unity at a time that is exacerbated this polarity. We were seeing like a major fracture within the geopolitical and economical structures on Earth, and of course this is now affecting the cultural sphere, which for a person like Nicholas Roerich, whose entire vision was based on the preservation of culture and the admiration of beauty. Now it's this because of one individual, the entire culture of a country so rich as Russia is being cancelled. So this is also happening right at this passage through the 11th year of Jose Arguelles, who is the person who basically put us on notice back in 1987 on the Mayan factor of what was happening, and this shift and this path beyond technology. What was it, and how we were going to experience this acceleration that we are
Mhm.
now experiencing.
Exactly. I think it's interesting you mentioned the the number associated, for example, with the Gregorian calendar, which speaks to its synchronization as far as timelines go, and that number being 28.
Mm-hmm.
That the Gregorian calendar repeats on a 28-year cycle. And so we are in the process of completing the 16th
Mm-hmm.
28-year cycle since the institution of the Gregorian calendar, and that happens in the year 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think what's interesting in that point, in terms of this conversation about how to uh, intercept or even uh, transmute or transform or reconcile or redeem the impacts of that calendar, that we know, according to the significance of the Telektonon prophecy or the game of the Telektonon, for those who would understand that it's a 28-day process every moon, 13 months, 28 days. So that 28 shows up there. And we're looking, though, within that 28-day sequence is a 16-day window called the Warrior's Cube. So when we step back and look at this 448-year window, that's 28 times 16, which suggests that we're approaching the opportunity of almost as if cubing and containing that timing system that's just run amok and
Yeah.
caused all this havoc.
Yeah.
So there's an invitation there on some level to recognize that we have, as we become more conscious of this, the opportunity to, as I said, like contain and transform those effects through effort of making new alliances and uniting people on a new agreement, you know, that is reflective of freedom for everyone. It's reflective of peace and beauty and the honor and respect of cultures, you know, throughout the world and across time. And I think it's only going to happen when people actually endeavor to do it. I think that, as we noted a couple of years ago, festival culture was one of those spaces where you could find and interact and meet with people from all over the world, from different cultures and backgrounds, and find the unanimity through music and dance and the culture of transformative consciousness or yoga and community, right? And then we got hit with this pause, the pandemic, right? So things, as they were moving along a certain track, just got suddenly stopped, in a way disrupted, we could say. And even in that, though, it's been, in a sense, for a purpose of the calibration of timing of these things. Because, as you said, as tragic as the circumstances happen to be right now in many ways, there is, I can't help but to shake the sense of there being a particular calibration or timing happening as well, where, considering the notion that all is number and all is in God and God is a number, you
Yeah.
know, with that notion, then it would appear that everything is specifically timed.
Yeah.
Just like gestation in the womb is timed, just like human fertility is timed, that being the basis of natural time,
Yeah.
and so similarly to the way the Anastasia movement in Russia has been able to represent some of the indigenous wisdom of the Siberian culture and the ancient Rus people in terms of their indigenous relationship and practices to connect with earth and connect in nature, connect with the subtle realities around us all the time. Like, that reflects part of that resuscitation in many ways of nature's timing. And that's an example in the East, right? And then here in the West, as you mentioned, you have Jose Arguelles, who, through effort of helping resuscitate an indigenous lens and awareness and resensitizing the Western mind back into nature's biorhythm and cycles by shifting the calendar to just shift the consciousness back to nature's timing frequency. A similar parallel thing And then to note as well that where there's been the space race and the Cold War and all these other activities between the governments of Russia and the United States, or the USSR, as it were, Soviet Union, the whole thing, that parallel to that, you still had your Nicholas Rorick's and his influence in the West, him having his museum in New York, that is significant to consider. Suggestion of all this adversarial energy between Russia and the United States, for example. However, there are very key people along the human story who have bridged these perceived divides for the purpose of fostering peace, really for that purpose. And so, I do see ourselves as having a responsibility along these lines, because in many ways we've been given the baton to continue to pursue the reality of universal world peace through making the noosphere conscious. We know the terminology noosphere comes from a Russian astrophysicist, a biochemist, and brilliant thinker who, in cooperation with a Jesuit priest in Desjardins, were able to coin the term noosphere, which we'll see the 100-year anniversary of in 2 years. They coined that term in 1926. So again, along this frequency, along this timing, in a couple of years, a few years, 4 years, what's that, 4 years from now, we'll be observing, I think, global celebrations to actually acknowledge the noosphere as the uniting factor of our humanity. So even though we're looking at conflict and derision and separation and division perpetuated through all global media for the most part right now, and through the conditioned minds largely, there is a parallel reality that we are navigating. Some of us more consciously than others, and that's okay. It's a process. As we awaken more coherently into the reality, the parallel reality that's parallel to the war and separation and decay, the entropic into the syntropic, which is regenerative and is sensitive to nature and attuned with creation, there's a new thing emerging in that way. And it does look like a collaboration among all nations, frankly, and particularly the East and the West, in ways that we've not, that we've been made to forget, because it's been part of the business strategy to make us forget and cause division and profit off of our division and our suffering, largely as humans. So now that we're done with that school of initiation, many of us, we don't choose that anymore. And so by tuning into natural time, you tune into your creative purpose, your creative potential, your ability to creatively actualize. That's a complete shift from navigating through a debt culture sequence or frequency, keeps you constantly dominated, as well as effectively unhealthfully domesticated, because it's true. Like, there are some aspects of our organic being, our wildness, that's been suppressed largely. So that warrior aspect, that spirit, or that spirit of a higher consciousness or an attunement to the natural world, long labeled pagan or all these other negative terminologies by folks who would otherwise want to dominate and control people, and control land and resources and the whole thing. It's all being reconfigured. And so while we're making these things conscious, I also feel we have a responsibility to bring it, as we've been doing, and we precedent to us, other efforts have happened to bring these things to the attention of civil society, to the United Nations, to these individuals and organizations that would be intending to do the good thing, though in some cases they've unfortunately been co-opted. And it's okay to say it, because it's not uncommon knowledge. That's why things tend to seem to get caught up in bureaucracy, because that's a part of the design, is to create an appearance of doing something, but get it caught up in bureaucratic entanglements so that nothing ever happens. And then the confusion is all the more riddling and people are just exhausted, and then they just really give up, and then they're like, well, forget it, there's no hope at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, part of the purpose of this installment of the series Align with Earth right now is to herald the fact that we're going to be observing the 52nd Observance of Earth Day, okay, on the 22nd of April. We also know numerologically this year is very corollary with 22. We know 22 is a very significant marker as Bolan Ik, white solar wind, as that particular archetype and consciousness that invariably shows up through the timeline in very synchronizing ways. And making all of these particular things conscious as an ode to harmony, as an ode to the synchronization of things, while we're not necessarily paying attention, things are happening. And at the same time, there is a lot of cause for disappointment and dismay. It's also darkest before the dawn. And we would be remiss to give up this close to what is the possible next window for fulfilling the synchronization, fulfilling, as was said, the unfinished business of the 20th century, and that being changing the calendar. And so as we continue to navigate this path in 2 days or on the day after this broadcast airs, we know that will signal the green central castle of enchantment. And that is the core, that's the heart of the fifth force. You know, and everything is vibrating higher now. Everyone knows it. There are the narratives that would keep us stuck in this material trap and caught in division and all that stuff. But people who are tuning in and realizing themselves in this window of transformation, everybody can attest to there being, even as we crossed that threshold on February 22nd, I could tell we also entered something very sublime. The third dimension gave us this expression of aggression and the conflict that's been inflated for a very long time. It didn't just happen. A lot of people in the West obviously think this has happened just now and this is coming out of nowhere, and they don't really know the history. And they would do themselves a great favor by studying the multiple sides of the stories in this political theater, because there are a lot of narratives that interact with each other in conflict and lesser or greater harmony at points of the storyline. Nevertheless, it felt like there was a very sublime energy that began to express coming through this numerical portal 22. We know 22 is the gene key of grace. That's another significant marker for us to make conscious as a family of humanity right now. And this comes from the gene keys from Richard Rudd, who is the Turton who discovered this phenomenally sacred hidden meaning in these numbers, in the whole transmission of the gene keys, which is a making conscious expression of what's happening through our species as we go from the darkness of our collective unconscious and shadow into the light of awakening and recognizing who we are and remembering, and this is a process underway. And all of these things, all of these are various timelines. I mean, that has its own pulse calendar that we track and that we're living into more and more with increasing awareness, many people around the world. And as my elder Mama Audrey says, we're in the time where we're coming into these crystal clusters. Here we are on the crystal day having this conversation, marking 13 Zolkins since the ultimate crystal day there ever was, December 21st, 2012. You can't get more crystal day than that. And here we are 13 Zolkins later, and for those listening who don't know a Zolkin is a 260-day cycle akin to the human gestation in the womb, a natural timing cycle. It's a part of our creative expression as a human being. It's part of what codes us. And along with that come these gene keys, which take us on the journey of transforming and transmuting all of the shadow, all of the inherited karma or concepts or constructs that have been, just thrown upon us and thrust upon us as we're born into a culture, into a society, into a family, into a social constellation, even. That all of these things are on the process of being transmuted, transformed radically. And so making conscious this calendar shift is, as I said, the unfinished business of the 20th century. It was meant from the first planetary Congress on Biospheric Rights in 1995 that by the year 2000, we would be operating on a 13-month, 28-day calendar. That was the issuing statement.
Yeah.
They determined, they being the group of 500 people that gathered in Brazil in that time for that important meeting, that precedent-setting convergence of souls and minds together to recognize and assert what would be the biospheric rights that would impact all of us, including and expressly Mother Earth. What are these rights? What is the right for Mother Earth to awaken in her own evolution, and to do so in concert with humanity? These are some of the things that were looked at in that through very technical and legal even language and an approach of new policy setting, new agreements among a whole group of concerned humans, right? The thing is that there was the intention that the calendar change would happen then. And we know largely it hasn't happened. It didn't happen then. But again, part of this, again, is all about timing. So if we do know the Gregorian has a frequency of 28, it repeats every 28 years, and we can look at these numbers now, then what I'm seeing in the parallel convergence, everything that ascends must converge, right? As there's sort of an ascension towards the year 2030 in the Gregorian calendar, that signals 16 28-year cycles. We know it's the cubing of the calendar. I would even call it that, the cubing of the calendar. That as a collective choice, we can come together and retire the colonization mentality. As a species, we have to agree to retire it and adopt the true harmonic standard of 13 moons, 28 days that's inherent in our biology. It's the biologically accurate calendar. It's not a national nation state based calendar. It's literally based on astro and biophysiology. It is truly the biologically correct calendar. It is the restoration of the divine feminine mathematically across the board. It speaks to everything that our species is efforting to shift, and many souls, I would say more than most, than those that don't, have a good intention, and yet unwittingly they're being pulled into some very treacherous waters because they're avoiding and ignoring the conversation about changing the calendar. They are ignoring it. So one of the things we'd been saying since 2016, when we initiated the Global Council for Calendar Awareness, was in the pursuit of 2030, and mind you, 2030 again being that window when this Gregorian calendar reaches 448 years. In 2030, if in the effort of achieving sustainable development goals, all 17 of them, they're not talking about the calendar issue in any of them, they're completely missing the point.
And we need to, for those who have been witnessing the work with the petition and how this was readdressed to these institutions for their notification.
Putting them on notice.
Yes. So the the fact that this is happening, also this completion of cycles is happening. Also 2029 will mark 28 years from 9/11, from 2001. So it's another benchmark or another harmonic marker, this transition from 2026, 27, 28, 29, 2030, and that there is an agenda 2030 running that
Well, reality.
is also running out of steam, because people are noticing that what it
Yeah.
was, and becoming much more evident right now.
And it is true because it includes, you know, well, it's just a lot of interesting characters
Mhm,
involved in the perpetuation of such. And this is not a new scheme. This is something that's been dreamed up many, many years ago, practically 50 years ago. And so we're seeing it play out now.
mm,
And it is one of the reasons why in the 90s, the declaration of the ineptitude of the United Nations was so strong in the rebuke of the First Planetary Congress,
mm,
because it, you know, it it is that urgent a matter, because the conundrum of the consciousness glitch is such that the people who are in leadership are, it's almost as if they're just incapable
mm,
of functioning on behalf of the goodwill of humanity in the biosphere,
mm,
because they're literally being paid by
mm,
the financial forces
mm,
that are bent on extraction as the rule.
mm,
That's the thing. Like, it's due to the addiction to oil, as our friend Stephen Greer
mm,
goes so eloquently into in one of his recent
mm,
videos.
mm,
Really running the risk of upsetting a lot of people. But the fact of the matter is, it's due to the planetary addiction to oil
mm,
and these robber barons, theft of time,
mm,
theft of the planet's precious resources,
mhm.
you know, to such the degree that even through the pharmaceutical industries, for God's sakes, you know, people are being given oil as medicine
Yeah, yeah.
in cases. So let's be honest about what's been going on. And that's the thing. At this point, in this telepathic age, proto-telepathy being the internet,
Mm,
the ability for humans to communicate to each other can flourish and blossom
mm,
into something amazing, or it can deteriorate into something completely deconstructed.
mhm,
And that's the choice again for us,
mhm,
and this is where because some people, are too deep into it
mm,
to even recognize the need to choose.
mm.
They don't know.
Yeah,
And that's because the conditioning is really, really super deep.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's the bottom line is that it is at this point in time is very important to be multidimensional, to be aware of what is happening on that geopolitical timeline, the patterns that are repeating from the past, that we are reliving the same emotional buttons that are being pushed right now. There's like similar overtones from what we experience or what humanity already experienced in from 1939 to 1945.
Mm.
We are basically in that choice point of those years, making sure that it's possible to activate other narratives that are much more beneficial for the planet than this doom and gloom prophecies,
Yeah.
which also goes back to the completion of this cycle that we were mentioning at the beginning of the broadcast of 22 cycles of 144 days in 2 days, so Kin 209.
Yes. Yes.
Because as we were mentioning before, also the number 22, it's not only like a constant over the different synchronizations and calibrations that are happening, but also it's been throughout our at least our most recent history, a number to that have served as a container for consciousness. We touch on this on the February 21st broadcast, the Instagram live, but it has it's all over the traditions and the spiritual streams on planet Earth, this number. So we are perceiving that because of the alignments of the cycles and this compounding effect of reharmonization of the timelines, that we, even though everything may look very chaotic in the outside, these cycles are telling us that there is a sacred order that is coming to pass in a very precise way and very elegant manner, and it has to do with harmonics, with this. Again, we were speaking about the harmonics of 8 years from these cycles completing, and the harmonic of 28 years of the Gregorian calendar, which is four cycles of 7 years, or 7 cycles of 4 years, and the harmonic of 13, which is one unit of a year, or one season. If we speak about 13 weeks, is one season. We are basically on the first week of the spring right now, in the first of 13 weeks that are bringing this energy of the new beginnings also to the surface, at least in the northern hemisphere, where all this situation is happening.
Yeah.
So there is a multidimensional component to what we are witnessing, and therefore, the more layers of this reality we can make conscious, the more coherent and harmonious our response to the events that are taking place will be. We
Yes.
can actually, at this point, make a perfect correlation of events through the harmonics, and understand that there is a hidden pattern, and that even though we cannot fully understand, comprehend what this pattern is, there is a harmony behind it, and we trust more than anything is those qualities, intrinsic qualities of number, because they allow us to overcome and sublimate the drama. When we see the drama through these lenses of pattern repetition and harmonics, we are transforming reality with our observation.
Observer effect.
With harmony.
That's right.
Yeah, and we have now, like, even though most people are putting their attention on this harmony outside, when we put the attention on the harmony behind this, it's amazing what is happening. While most of humanity is still paying attention to the 3D, just the 3D, and not to the fourth dimension, which is
Yeah,
time. Which are how are these cycles informing us of the completion of stages? And I
exactly.
think that at this moment,
Hmm.
because of the precision of the numbers, the message is very clear that this is a transcendental moment for the planet.
Absolutely. Wow. Thankfully. Do you have any of those visuals that you want to share?
Yeah,
Just as
let's,
we
let's
kind of wrap this up, but maybe get a chance to show some visuals.
yeah. I actually a window tab. Mm,
Yeah,
I
excellent.
recommend to anyone mm, watching now this transmission to go to this report on the harmonic factor at medium.com that was prepared last year, November 6, 2021. That was the second day of the cycle that we are about to close in 2 days. Right? So we wrote the article 2 days, the second day of this 22-day cycle of 144 days. And we are now like presenting a couple of new findings since the article was written. But I think it condensates the importance of closing this cycle. And we did like a major review of the timelines going back to the let's say the most important of all the transitions, which is today, December 21st, 2012, and this cycle of the return of sacred power that Jose Arguelles left as a terma on the 22nd of October 2010. And this is like a time map of the cycles ahead, and we see below that these cycles from this day in 2010 to galactic synchronization, which is here 164, it represents the index of increase of spiritual energy activating the noosphere. Mm. This is because we reach a critical harmonic here, which is the 26 years of from the start of this cycle, of this new series count. The new series count started in 1987, and July 26, 2013 marked the exact midpoint of that cycle of 52 years. We were speaking about the cycle of the Earth Day is going to be 52 years
Yes.
this year on the 22nd again.
Yeah.
So what we did basically at the Harmonic Factor was to extend the harmony behind these cycles into the future, and map it into a way that we can also make conscious some important markers. And this is galactic synchronization kin 164. And what we map here in this graphic is the fractal quality of these 22 cycles as being also a fractal of the 22 calendar rounds of the Quetzalcoatl prophecy of the 13 heavens and the 9 underworlds, which appear here on top of the. So basically, in to summarize, since July 26, 2013, when we reach that midpoint of the 52-year cycle, we have completed 21 cycles of 144 days. This article was written around this point here that is signaled with the star on the second day, which was kin 22 on the long count, on the indigenous count. So it was Bolonic.
Right.
So that served also like as a signal that the culmination of this cycle here in 209, March 28, 2022, is another important benchmark, as it marks our redemption of the 22nd hell or underworld, which is 1935 to 1987. That was the atomic era. That is the banner of peace, 1935.
Yes.
The Cold War.
Yes.
So we are basically 2 days away from containing here in this the effects of these 52 years.
And also, can I point out that the kin 164 at the beginning of this observation, July 26, 2013, is the same factor in the indigenous count.
Yes.
On kin 209, it's actually going to be kin 164 in the Mayan long count, traditional long count.
That's what we were going to pinpoint today, because that was a recent discovery.
Yes.
And it shows the beauty behind the completion of these cycles and the prophetic alliance between the counts. This is something that we have been highlighting since 2013, how the indigenous Maya count of the 13 Bactuns and 20 Bactuns is weaving a silent tapestry with the dream spell count of Jose Arguelles, the galactic Maya count.
Yes.
And this is a perfect example, because the alpha of this cycle is kin 164 on the galactic Maya, and will be 8 Can or Oaxac Can on the indigenous count, being the other bookend of the prophetic window. Yeah, so that's
synchronization.
That's beautiful.
That's a beautiful synchronization.
Actually, I will update this graphic after this broadcast, so that it can show the beauty of it, because it's one more layer. It's like the cherry on top of.
I know.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
It's framed to such a perfect degree of that. 2 days ago, it was 4 how on the long count. So we were completing 13 cycles of 260 days from December 21st, 2012. But because we have this leap day anomaly, and we already have 2016 and 2020 as leap days, so there's a difference of 2 kin between the indigenous Maya and the indigenous and the galactic Maya. That's why today's kin 207, which was December 21st, 2012, and 2 days ago it was 4 how.
Right.
So we are in that window of reharmonization between counts, and it happened to be that the closing of this cycle of 144 days, this 22nd, which was completely hidden to us until recently, when we decided just to follow the guidance of spirit and do calculate these stages of fractal prophecy,
which happened on long count kin 22.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For those who who are watching, we will add the link on the description of this video, and but it's on Medium, and we go we analyze the importance of the number 22 in different cultures, the importance of this frequency 22 within the prophetic stream of the Maya, the entire construct of the cosmology is based on these numbers of like the nine wrongly named hells, because they are really underworlds of or levels of the earth, and the 13 heavens, or levels of the cosmos. These are the central axis of Mesoamerican cosmology, these 13 heavens and nine underworlds. So
And
we're
them together, that's the phi ratio, because aren't they
yeah,
representative of the phi ratio then as well? The 13 heavens plus the factor of 9
yeah,
underworlds.
that's something that we also
It's roughly approximate
Mhm.
to the phi ratio right there.
Yes, yes, we see it here that we actually created like a couple of golden sections.
Right.
So this first proportion is 8 cycles to 13, which is 21.
I see.
And then this other one, which is 13 cycles and 8 to 21. So we are in that ninth, which is the plus
Yes.
one, basically. But we see that in between the fourth phi ratio is the 9 and the 13.
Right.
And the other important layer that was that serves as a confirmation of the harmony behind the cycles that we are closing is that the start of these 9 cycles took place on September 9.9 of 2018, which is 9. So the 9 underworlds started on 9.9, came one nine, like the equivalent of the arrival of the prophet Quetzalcoatl from 947 to 999. That's the year of his legacy, the cycle of his 52
Which was
years.
52-year legacy.
Yeah.
Right.
So he left according to the prophecy on the year 999, and here we have like a fractal.
999.
Yeah, the 9 underworlds starting on the 99 of the 9. And
Boy.
ending on the 13-day cycle commanded by the ninth solar seal of the soul kid, 9.
Yes.
The moon is 9.
Red moon.
Yeah, so another important layer of this, that since we to this point here we have already closed these 7 cycles that we examined before.
Yes.
We closed these first 7 cycles of 144 days, and we enter this the we enter these 22 cycles. So to make the long story short, King 209 is in resonance with completing 29 cycles, because if we add these 22 cycles to the 7 cycles before, is 29.
Wow.
We are completing
29
29 cycles of 120
209.
on 209.
Oh, which is 11, which is 22.
Yeah.
Which are 29, 2 and 9 is 11, 209 factors to 11, which is your 22.
Yeah, there is like this is
Just,
a
you can't mess it up.
this is a major threshold
In 2022.
in 2022. Yeah, it's and
All right.
the fact that this entire fractal um, of war that we have been is contained within this cycle. That's also a major confirmation of the fractal qualities of this stage of our evolution, 1935, 1987.
And
We are
making
eating,
conscious.
we are making it
And
conscious.
making conscious.
Yeah, and containing within
And
this.
containing it, because
uh,
in doing that, we are perhaps supporting our averting even greater layers of catastrophe here.
yeah,
Because through the observer effect, by making it conscious, we're already assuring
mm,
universal world peace
mm,
as the pure intention in this mood of intention.
yeah,
So, wow, powerful.
yeah. So
There's
yeah,
many tools there for people to navigate, and just for folks listening to understand and appreciate. We're going to be returning to this article multiple times into the future, because it is tracking a period of 1,440 days
mm,
from November 4th.
yeah.
So we hit the fractal cycle of 144 days,
Hmm.
then that means that we have basically 1,440 minus 144 left to go. So we basically have 1,300 days.
Yeah,
But
we have on Kin 209, on the start of the ninth of the cycle commanded by the ninth solar seal.
right,
We are starting the ninth, the remaining 9 cycles of 144 days to the golden intersection of timelines.
wow. And so
Yeah.
that 9 times 144 will be a total of 1,296 days to go, basically.
Uh-huh.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
And that'll be basically 10 to 10
Mm.
will begin the count of those days
Yeah.
to the completion.
And,
So
and to explain a little bit what is the golden intersection of timelines,
yes, yeah,
here is also like a basic couple of charts that show what is this. This is the first one, which is basically the discovery that from the start of the Gregorian calendar on October 15, 1582, to the 443 years anniversary on October 15, 2025, we have a perfect fractal of the phi ratio, which corresponds to
61,803 days.
yes.
Wow, which is a fractal of the phi ratio,
Yeah.
right?
So as we can see here, also like the golden section of this cycle that we will close in 2025 on October 15 was the completion of 144,000 million minutes since the start of the Gregorian calendar.
Wow.
So what we have been doing is redeeming this mechanical cycle of time with this overlay or this layer of harmony that you can wrap around the distortion. Because on that same day, as we reach 443 years of the Gregorian calendar, we also reach the completion of 13 tune cycles of 360 days since December 21st, 2012. So we have here December 21st,
13
2012.
tune cycles.
Yeah, and since then, on October 14, 2025, on solar seed, which is also this waste field that we are right now. Last March 23rd, the 11th anniversary of Observed Wages was on 9th, which is also the galactic signature of Nicholas Roerich, which
Mm.
serves also as a beautiful corollary to this completion of these 22 cycles. And on that day, we will complete this golden marker. So 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029 are going to be opportunities to keep making conscious the detrimental effects of this tool on our evolution.
And interestingly, just to note, you see the long count marker there, as you said, is 13.0.13.0.0, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference of 1,300 days between those two cycles. When you factor, there's a 1,300 day difference between the two cycles. You notice that? Where you have the 13 times 260, which is today, December 21st, 2012. And then you have the 13 times 360, which is also anchored to the same date, December 21st, 2012.
Yeah, because this is what is beautiful about the natural time cycles is that because the harmonic factor behind all of them is number 13. You can overlay fractal structures.
The divine feminine. I mean, it's inherent. This is where, come on, women.
Yeah.
Let's get into them in natural time.
So to say it in another way, which is
women too, saying women
train
too.
our multidimensional perceptions. On December 21st, 2012, we started a fractal of 13 tune cycles of 360 days that we will complete when or that will synchronize with the completion of 443 years of the Gregorian calendar. And each of those cycles of 360 days are a redemption or an overlay of the 13 backtones of the great cycle of history.
13 backtones. And there's 1,300 days between the two of them. Difference.
So as we can see, the next few important milestones within this, tracking these 1,440 days of 1,400 minutes each to this golden intersection of timelines with the October 30th, 2022, which is Solar Serpent, then October 25th, 2023, it's Overton Serpent, and then October 19th, 2024, that's a leap year. Right? The date changes from Serpent to Seed.
I see.
Yeah, this is cosmic seed.
Right.
And the cycle will conclude on solar seed, which is is the same way spell of because this is important, every 13 cycles of 360 days, we complete 18 cycles of 260 days.
Right.
That's why
13 and 18, difference of 5. Right.
So this really what we are doing right now is just tracking as we approach into greater and greater harmony at this point.
Yes. Solar
so
seed.
it's so important just to make this conscious so that we include and transcend the geopolitical storyline or narrative that is happening, and understand that or comprehend, understand that we have another set of factors playing in the background that are telling us this movie is not going to repeat. There
Right.
is so much harmony that it just going to express more and more harmony. The more witnesses can make this conscious, the more eyes.
Yeah.
But we
I
go
was
back
gonna
that
say,
we only need basically two. Two. It's been said in many traditions that two intentions align. It only
mm,
requires two persons, two
yes. Yeah.
people or more
And it
gathered
makes
in my name.
exactly with that awareness. It makes me think about the boundary dissolving ceremonies that they had in 1995
Hmm,
around in North America, here in the United States.
hmm,
That was a ceremony
hmm,
to reflect the dissolving of borders and dissolving of those false artificial boundaries
mhm.
that extend from artificial time.
Yeah.
So, in a similar way, I'm getting a sense that maybe we want to think about putting a call out of ceremony for people who would come together and ceremonially
Hmm,
begin the process of retiring and releasing the impacts
hmm,
that have occurred, and doing it in a ceremonial way along these particular significant timelines, these guideposts.
hmm,
Because by doing it, as you say, two or more gathered with that awareness,
mhm,
it can, it can certainly shift the density of the situation more and more,
hmm,
really work a sublime solution in the subtle. I think it could be very powerful, actually.
hmm,
So it just gives me some inspiration around looking into how that may express
hmm,
ceremony around
hmm,
ceremonializing these numbers.
hmm,
So the people not only think about it intellectually, but they really embody it for the
hmm,
healing that it reflects,
mhm,
that capacity, that potential, that purpose. So I feel that that may be a beautiful way to commemorate the
mhm,
consciousness around these particular markers
mhm,
en route to 2030, which again we know is the complete cubing and containing
hmm,
of that Gregorian calendar frequency.
mhm,
It's like at that point it's just contained,
hmm,
you know,
hmm,
and our work will continue to be, making people conscious of the solution, the unfinished business of the 20th century,
hmm,
forming the calendar to a new harmonic standard, coming to new agreement through proto-telepathy, the internet, with our human relations, to better appreciate love and appreciate the path beyond technology.
hmm,
And that's what we're really here to do. And so I want to thank you for elucidating for us these particular factors,
hmm,
really, bringing to presence the harmonic factor that is 13. And I want to encourage people to visit the website where they can download a free PDF of the current year transitional calendar for Gregorian 21 to 2022, that we're currently in the ninth moon, or the ninth month of the moon of intention. And just as we're making that conscious, we're inviting people to, just to continue to stay the course. And we will certainly look for the ways in which we can continue to synchronize, synthesize, harmonize ourselves,
hmm.
and continue to make these things conscious and bring them forward to people.
Yeah. To have
Yeah.
a new moon genesis is in the horizon.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it is on the what is that? The 28th
Yeah.
that this shift is happening, which also, though, in the 1328 marks the 22nd day. So there's another 22. It's the 22nd day of the moon.
Yeah.
So it's it's beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful to witness that. And in
Beautiful.
fact, day 17 was the solar seed that happens to be that day day 17, this wave spell, as you mentioned, was the
Yeah.
day that I actually reflected with Ishel, reflected
Mm,
on the idea of the golden proportion of the moon
mm,
being
mhm,
factor 17, factor 11 of
mm,
every moon. So it's
mm,
interesting as to just how when one begins to become more cognizant to these timing frequencies and patterns and harmonic array,
mm.
it's jumping out all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
And then to
This.
take it there and see solar seed as like the the completion of this particular ceremony, this particular work.
Mm, wow.
And that
Yeah.
is the golden proportion of timelines, as we're talking
Mhm,
about synchronization of timelines here, as we present this for the 52-day Green Castle of
mm.
Enchantment, as we publish this particular interview and conversation for folks. It could not be better timed. I
Yeah,
just have to say.
yeah, yeah. I have to give really thanks to all those human beings that left us clues in stone and
Mhm.
in books, in recordings, and
Yes,
really honor their memory in this passage,
yes.
and be grateful for having the awareness to appreciate their teachings and their legacy, to extend this legacy to the coming generations, and allow humanity to enter into an organic stage of evolution in full consciousness.
Mm.
So what an honor is to
Oh,
participate of that. Yeah,
wow. Absolutely. Yes, indeed.
yeah, yeah. Very very
Mm.
moving, especially because we have been also moving through portals since then. We didn't even talk about the equinox and the full moon before
Yeah,
the equinox. It was a major portal also. So,
absolutely. Lots of stabilization happening, lots of rebalancement
hmm,
happening through these portals and passages.
hmm,
Just being more and more present and conscious to the celestial supports with
hmm,
Earth and the advent and the continuity of her noosphere and really being conscious to that.
hmm,
So there'll be more opportunities. We will continue to stay the course and do our very best to bring this information forward to people and find ways to improve that delivery and most importantly find ways to truly unite with others out here who are
hmm,
holding this high watch and keeping the frequency, you know, and
yeah,
really supporting our transition into greater unity as a
hmm,
true unified force,
hmm,
uh, conscious of the noosphere, conscious of Earth as a single planetary organism,
hmm,
humanity included.
hmm,
So that's goals, and that's what we're working toward right now by bringing these things to consciousness and bringing the awareness to these aspects of our human narrative that require the healing and
hmm,
restoration
yeah,
through our compassion and assertion of who
yeah,
we truly are. So I want to thank you, brother, for your presence and wisdom and for all of your undying efforts and continued efforts in, again, helping make conscious what has heretofore been unconscious and just ensuring that we are increasing the beauty and the joy in this planet, that we can continue to make these things aware to ourselves and to one another and
hmm,
share this knowledge with humanity. I
hmm.
think it's a true honor to just journey in this work together with you.
In that case, we are mirrors, and thank you for reflecting back uh, this understanding, because it needs we need the human element, and the ability to weave in words and in ideas the reality that we experience and that we are creating with our words, And it's such a blessing to have you as a friend, as a brother, as a reflection of this passage through our collective evolution, because we are just like small sparks or reflections of that whole. And what a blessing to be conscious of the full spectrum of it.
Yes, sir. More and more blessings to the family, and we will look forward to welcoming more folks to visit us online at Harmonic Convergence 2028. And you can find it by searching Harmonic Convergence 2020 to 2028, and also visit theharmonicfactor.com. Please visit us there. Find us on IG at the Harmonic Factor, and we will look forward again to future opportunities to co-align and join humanity in this journey. My brother. All right. Allah King. Peace and blessings.
Peace.